is Leather and Laces. This is a talk show about leather lifestyle, leather leadership, medical health in leather, a whole bunch of things dealing with leather, kink, and BDSM. If you are under the age of 18, I do ask that you click off right now and head over to Scarlet Teen. I'm giving you an extra resource, but don't stay here. Come back when you're 18 at least, and then you can hang out with us. But we are going to be talking about sexual health, sexual education, and fun, kinky leather stuff. So I'll see you later, underage people. My name is Girlfriend. I am the 2020 Florida Community Boot Black title holder. This interview does not reflect FCBB, Florida Community Boot Black, or FLSCB, Florida Leather Boy, Florida Leather Store, in any way or shape or form. Neither does my interviewer, so please be kind to them. Today I have with me Kai.
Hello.
Hello. So I've got Kai here with me, and we're gonna do something really fun, and we're gonna talk about some sexual education and some lovely questions about that today.
Indeed we do.
We're gonna do all the good things.
All
So
the fun stuff.
all the fun stuff. So, who are you? What are your pronouns?
Hi, my name is Pup Kai. I have been in the kind of general leather community since I was about 18. It was a journey, let me tell you. My pronouns are he, him, they, them. Still trying to figure a lot of that out. At this point, I kind of exist somewhere on the realm umbrella of non-binary, but I'm just me at this point. I'm putting the pieces together as I go, kind of building the plane as I fly.
Awesome. What's your contact info in case anyone wants to contact you after?
So my contact info, you can always reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, kind of. My Instagram is modified, spelled the regular way, _merman. My Facebook is Kai, Kai, Martino, Martino. It's just a cute little cartoon of me right now, but I change my Facebook profile photo kind of frequently. And then my Twitter, which is very much NSFW, don't follow me unless you want to see my butthole, is
Same.
PupKai _. Super simple, really easy.
Awesome. Okay. And what are we cleaning today?
So, I just got this lovely Loungefly bag from Disney. I've had my eye on this for quite a while now, and I know, it's so precious. I finally bit the bullet and I got it. And so I figured we would give it a cute little clean because I'm a good 95% sure it's genuine leather.
It is at least a genuine leather. And Loungefly is really good about sourcing and dyeing their colored leather, which is really good because it does all the good things. Oh, hello, Roomba. Tech support! Turn off the Roombas! Turn off the robots! Okay. So, tell us your top 3 kinks or fetishes.
Okay, I would say top, always has been, probably always will be, underwear in general, and especially like dirty underwear. I am a huge raunch pig when it comes to stuff like that. My favorite is, I have 1 or 2 jocks specifically that I've had for a really long time and I've never washed. And so they're filled with like my cum, friends' cum, mine and other people's piss, sweat. I wear it to the gym. And then, what are some other ones? Oh my god. It's always so easy to talk about until you're like on the spot.
Sorry.
I definitely enjoy pain to a certain degree. It's kind of weird, like, it's a weird area that I'm still figuring out. Like, I definitely enjoy pain and I like the experience of it, but for me it's a little bit more spiritual, if that makes sense. And then, you said 3. Oh gosh, kinks or fetishes. I don't know, just general. Actually, the newest one I would say is the kind of idea of a dynamic that's like coach and trainee, specifically with like bodybuilding and like training at the gym. Because I started hitting the gym like really hard and actually committing to it in like November, and I've gotten really into it. And then there's like been certain friends that I've had that have like really supported me in it, and I'm like, oh, I really like this. I was like, wait, I kind of like this in more than just like a thank you for telling me I'm good for going to the gym way. So, and the more I look into it, the more I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I really, really like this.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's open up your bag. Let's dig
yes.
around. Let's see what's in it.
So,
What we got?
for this section of what's in my bag, we're going to be looking. A lot of it's just stuff that I've had in it because I was at the parks. A safe, of course, which you'll see. I got a face mask, which you can't see because I got it for somebody, and it's a surprise. I got my backup glasses, just in case. You never know. These ones go with my outfit, so I didn't wear these ones. But and then it has my microfiber inside, obviously. And then I had granola, but it's actually right next to me because I'm a thick boy. I like eating. Phone charger, obviously the essentials. Carrot cake flavored lip balm, and a big bottle of hand sanitizer.
I don't see massive bottles of hand sanitizer in anyone's bag after this. I swear, I'm judging you forever.
Oh, and obviously I have my magic band as well. That was from the parks.
Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into the bag.
Indeed, we do. This is actually my first time doing anything with colored leather.
Well, you're in good hands. So colored leather, as we're gonna go over, is we're gonna treat it just as any other leather. You want to make sure you at least test your conditioners on it, because that's going to be really, really important for a leader. So we're going to do a test patch first to see what does this bag like, because
Gotcha.
that telling us will give us an answer. I'm also going to look at the labels really quick because they're usually inside, and this should tell me that it's a genuine leather instead of a pleather, because if it's not, I have the stuff, but it should be a genuine.
What you cannot see is one of the dogs off to the side.
Yeah, just
and
blepping.
He has such a blep, and it's very cute and very distracting.
Oh, and there's also still some gel pack.
Oh man, forgot about that. We don't need that anymore.
Oh,
Save that snack for later.
Save that for later. Oh my god, change! Look at you!
Oh, sorry, I have loose change in there too.
Gotcha. It feels like a genuine leather.
Yeah, that's what I was,
It doesn't tell me what it is, and that's fine. This is like a feel thing. If it was a vinyl type leather,
you could tell.
You could tell it's way more slicker. It doesn't have like all these nice little pores in it. That's like the best way I can describe without like being there in person to
I
show
also
you what you
ripped
feel.
the tags off, and it probably said it on the tags.
It probably did. So
you can also always Google it.
we could, but my phones are both occupied at this point.
I mean, I could.
You could if we really want to be accurate. I'm gonna take off all this little plastic though that I see.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot. I was trying to get it all off, and I just didn't want to do that in the
I'm
parks.
currently sitting on my trunks with my knives, so this helps. The lovely benches you guys always see throughout any interview we do are actually mine and my husband's sex toy trunks. So it holds all our toys, which includes all our knives.
Nice.
What is a lounge light made out of? Oh, that was one. And make sure you didn't clean it when it's brand new, because most people just be like, oh, they're so pretty.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But they will degrade over time if you don't do
Yes.
that.
You know, upkeep. Which thankfully, as kinky leather folk, we know how to take care of our leather. Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Some people
I
don't.
will teach you if you do not know. Please come to me. I'll even teach you how to repair it, because that's something that happens. We're all fixed. Yay! Okay. So sorry about that technical difficulties. The internet decided to hate us. So we have we did some research, and it is a vegan leather. It's actually very good quality vegan leather, which is really nice because it doesn't have the slickness that a lot of vegan and fish oil leather has.
You know, the first thing I would have done that I didn't actually do is smell it, because
that can also be a
I
very
can definitely tell you if it's leather or not.
But that's okay, because I know how to take care of all those things. So, good news. Okay, so we're gonna do a test patch of the mink oil paste then. So this stuff, it spoils every 6 months. So enjoy. So please make sure you're test patching this, and you have to clean your bag every 6 months now. The pleather stuff is very much very, very temperamental. So you do need to keep an eye on it, yeah. So this expires every 6 months, which this one's probably coming up on its date. Yep, expires end of March. we'll get into it at the end of March. Okay, so what do you do for work?
So I
They talk about that.
currently work at a local nonprofit down in Broward County. I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to actually say where I work just because they're very particular about it, so I'm not going to, but it's not difficult to figure it out. Again, just like girlfriend, I do not speak for my company or my organization. I speak solely for myself. But what I do there is I am on the prevention team, meaning I essentially do everything that's involved in preventing and educating people about STIs and HIV specifically. So I go to schools, rehabs, detox centers and stuff like that and do educational groups, and then I also do on-site testing for them. And on top of that, I also am in charge of the condom distribution for our entire Broward County area. So if anybody who is here happens to be in Broward County and you want condoms in whatever place of business you have completely free, just give me just contact me, give me a little call, email, whatever, and I will be able to set that up for you. And then I also just generally do HIV and STI testing in our office as well.
Awesome. Okay, so we got that. So I have my brushes here. These are our browns. We're going to use white saddle soap. Just because it's a nice clear coat. It's not a black, so it really doesn't matter for the color. I personally like using the white on my colored leather because I'm a little bit more extra particular. And we're going to use some basic water. And we're going to use our colored brushes. Now mine are separated as black and brown, so we will not be using this one, but just this guy today. So, you're going to take it, you're going to go in itty bitty circles, and the test patch came out fine, so you can usually tell within a few minutes.
If it was not okay, what would it look like?
It would look a little cakey.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
it would look cakey and dull. So it looks fine. It's got a little bit of sheen. You can see like from this part to this part.
Gotcha.
There's a little bit of like extra shine on it. So there's
Extra.
a little extra zhuzh.
I assume we would want to spend a little bit extra attention to the straps and stuff like that, just because that's where a lot of the sweat and stuff gathers, as well as
Yep.
the back patch. Cool.
Yep, that's exactly why. So I'm gonna let you do this
Awesome.
because this is what I'm here to teach you. So I get to kind of take a break. Kai is also a very well trained and skilled boot black, so I'm not too worried. We also have rags here when you want to wipe off and just toss them in front of us.
Perfect. All right.
Alright, so how can one prevent HIV, AIDS, or an STI?
So that's kind of, it's more than just a simple, it can be a very simple question. Obviously, everybody knows wear condoms, stuff like that. But I would say the easiest way to prevent any type of STI, as well as especially HIV, is just to be educated on how it's spread in the first place. So HIV in general is spread through 6 different bodily fluids. There are only 6 bodily fluids in the human body that can transmit HIV. A lot of people immediately think spit is one of them. It is not. So I will go over which ones do spread HIV in a second, but just to quickly kind of dispel the spit thing, the main reason why spit cannot transmit HIV is because there is physically not enough active copies of the virus in spit to begin with to be able to transmit the virus. You would have to drink something up to like 5 gallons of spit in order to contract HIV from somebody, and I don't know about you, kinky fuckers. To me, that doesn't sound like a great time.
But someone may be into
somebody
it.
might be into it. Please don't do it. It's not a challenge. But yeah, so it can't be spread by spit. It can't be spread by urine. Tears, sweat, fecal matter cannot spread HIV. However, like I said, there are 6 different bodily fluids that can transmit HIV. Amongst those are blood, obviously, semen, preseminal fluid. Technically, they are considered different, even though they're kind of the same. What are they? Yeah, blood, semen, preseminal fluid, vaginal mucus, anal mucus, and breast milk. Breast milk is one that people don't really think about, or doesn't really come up unless you are somebody who can get pregnant, obviously. All of those bodily fluids, I always get caught up in trying to say this. So all of those bodily fluids can be undetectable if the individual is undetectable, which means that they can't transmit HIV, except for breast milk. Breast milk always will be contagious, and breast milk will always transmit the virus no matter what. It's just because of how breast milk is made, the content of the virus in it, et cetera, et cetera. The best way we like to talk about being undetectable is if you compare the virus to sand, say in a bottle of water. If you have all the sand in a bottle of water, every single grain represents a copy of the virus, you're far more likely to have a little bit of the virus transmitted to you if you drink the bottle of water that has a bunch of sand, versus if somebody is on antiretrovirals, it brings the amount of sand way down to maybe like a few grains of sand in a bottle of water, so you're less likely to come in contact with any of that. So, that being said, the most important way that you can prevent the transmission of HIV in those bodily fluids is to prevent those bodily fluids from coming into contact. That's how I always like to phrase it. Any type of activity that will cause two of those bodily fluids to come together is possible transmission. So we're talking about unprotected sex, blood-to-blood contact, specifically needle sharing is one of the most common ways. Obviously breastfeeding for, parents to infants. There are different risks and levels of risk associated with different sexual acts and different acts in general. So the one sexual act that has the highest risk is technically anal sex, just because of the type of mucosal membrane that is in the anus, and then you also run a higher risk of micro tears and fissures opening up within the rectal lining when you are engaging in sex. And then the risk also goes up if the person who is topping is uncut. So there's a higher risk associated with people who are uncircumcised as well, for similar reasons in which the skin is very thin, and there's actually more cells that line the foreskin and the head of the penis that are very easy for the HIV to attach to and to permeate. These are cells, they're like T helper cells essentially. That, and also, like I said, the skin's very thin and it's easier for the skin to tear and to cause micro tears. And so when you have a micro tear, you open up essentially and open it directly into the bloodstream, and that obviously can increase your risk for contracting HIV.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yes.
It's super important.
Indeed we do.
Oh, great. So how did AIDS and HIV come about? When did it first start? And why is this so important for history on you? Why you should know this and why we are panicking about the Rona here?
So, in and of itself, there's many different theories as to how HIV actually became a human virus. So, for those of you that don't know, just to educate, HIV is an acronym. It stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS, which is an acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. AIDS is the third and final stage of an HIV infection. It essentially just means that your body can't protect itself. Your immune system is shot. So, that being said, one of the leading theories, and I say theory because it's not been necessarily proven, nobody really knows for sure, is that HIV mutated from SIV, which is simian immunodeficiency virus, and somehow through either monkey research or just kind of close proximity with monkeys, some of those bodily fluids transmitted to humans, and because that mutation was in there, it started to replicate itself when it came in contact with a human, essentially. Again, it's a theory. I'm not going to say nobody knows how, but there's many different theories as to why. That's the one that I know the kind of best, and that's the more widely accepted theory. It originally was thought to have come to the U.S. Via Africa. Again, different theories as to why, when, where, whoever. But the first actual, and this is kind of one of those weird trick question things that a lot of people don't know, the first actual diagnosed case of HIV was not until 1982. However, it was thought that HIV actually was infecting people in the U.S. as early as the early 70s. So just kind of looking back at the people who had died from a mysterious disease and looking at the symptoms and what had happened, people said, okay, well, they probably have HIV. But the first actually diagnosed case wasn't until 1982. Like I said, because we didn't really know much about it, it caused it to spread very quickly. Because it is the virus itself is one of the most simplistic viruses, yet one of the most deadly. The reason being, the virus itself is literally just a sequence of RNA coded in protein. What it does is that protein coding lets it attach itself to your immune cells, and then it essentially uses something called reverse transcriptase to unravel your DNA and then input its own sequence of RNA. So every time every time that cell replicates, it replicates the sequence of HIV as well, which is what causes it to replicate and survive. It's, like I said, a virus, so it needs a host to live, so it won't survive outside of the body for longer than a few seconds, in all honesty. However, the main reason why it took so long for us to not only find out what it was that was killing all these people, but on top of that, figure out how we can treat it is because, like I mentioned, the highest risk associated with sexual intercourse is anal sex. Anal sex is one of the main ways that gay men like to have sex. So that's the reason why it mainly affected the gay community to begin with back in the 80s. Because of the general stigma and thought process about the gay community back then was so toxic, for lack of a better word, the way it was viewed, because all these people were dying, was, oh, well, it's okay, it's only the gay people. The right type of people are being killed by this mysterious virus. So there wasn't that incentive to find out what it was that was killing all these people immediately. And in all honesty, it wasn't until you had famous straight people and famous people in general that started to become infected with this, like Magic Johnson. Mm-hmm. And then you had other actors that were speaking up about it, like, I always get her and her daughter mixed up. It wasn't Judy Garland, was it? No, it was... I'm terrible at this. I'm bad with names. I make it sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about. But
No, it's okay. It's a candid interview. You're allowed to forget things and skip. It's fine.
It wasn't until you had certain actresses and actors that started actually speaking out about it because they had such a gay following and because they wanted to advocate for us that people started taking it seriously and actually wanting to, fight for us and find out what was going on and how to treat it and what was killing our people, essentially. So that's part of what made it so deadly so early on, which is part of the issue in all reality. And because of that, it's taken a very large toll on our community, my community, which is in part why I wanted to start in the first place, why I wanted to get into this field of HIV prevention and education, is because if I wasn't going to do it, who would? Who better than somebody to educate the younger generation than somebody who is younger that does speak, the young kids' language, for lack of a better term, and especially when you have the people who did survive kind of starting to step down and, who fought for us for so long. I kind of view it as it's my turn and it's my generation's turn to kind of take the baton and start, fighting for not only them, but the people who didn't make it and for the next generation. And I think there's something really powerful that I saw not too long ago where somebody mentioned how a lot of people complain that there's a lot of, all of a sudden there's all these gay people and there's all these queer people that are popping up, and it's like, well...
We've been here.
Not only that, but it's not because there's more of us now, it's because all of the gay people that you would have seen in the boomer generation and the Gen X generation died. It's because a large chunk of our community, a large chunk of the people we would have seen in the media no longer are here. And so we're just now catching up with that, and we're just now starting to kind of see a larger amount of us in this community. And that mixed with it generally being a better experience for people to, and an easier experience for people to come out, we're just now starting to see a lot more queer representation, which is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you make me so proud. He's doing great work on the bag too. I'm making him multitask. So what are some of the medications that can help prevent the spread?
Prevent the spread of HIV, we have, I'm sure a lot of you people have heard about it by now. It's definitely being shoved down all of our throats, justifiably so. We have something called pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP. Very cute, very catchy little name.
Mm-hmm. What is it?
Essentially, the quick and dirty of it is a pill that you take once daily, and it prevents the transmission of HIV to those living without it. So, what it means is, to get into a little bit more of a technical term, what it does is, like I mentioned earlier, HIV, when it's introduced to your system, attaches to your immune cells, and it releases something called reverse transcriptase, essentially to infiltrate and to work its way into your cells. What PrEP does is it prevents the virus itself from being able to release reverse transcriptase. That's all it does. And so what happens is, if HIV can't work its way into your system and it can't work its way into your immune cells, it can't replicate. And if it can't replicate, it can't do what it needs to do to infect you. So then it just kind of floats away. It gets eaten by a macrophage, flushed out of the system, and that's kind of it. That's the end of the life cycle for the virus. There's also something called NPEP, or non-occupational post-exposure prophylaxis. It works in a very similar way. A lot of people compare it to the morning after pill for HIV. However, I always hesitate to call it that because it's not just one pill. It's kind of a little bit more intense. It is 2 pills a day for the next 28 days, and you would take it after a possible exposure to HIV within 72 hours. That's the most important part. The quicker, the better. Anything after 72 hours, the efficacy goes way down. Mm-hmm. It's, through what's it called? I completely lost that train of thought. Anyway,
right past
it just, yeah.
The effectiveness wears down.
Yes, it's completely wears off to the point that it's not worth really taking the toll on your body to prevent it anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
Originally, it was a medication that was PEP and NPEP. It was originally designed for medical workers who, it was essentially just designed to, again, prevent them from contracting HIV from accidental sticks in the hospital, doctor's office, et cetera. And then through testing, it was finally released for the general public under a slightly different name, NPEP. That's why it's called non-occupational.
Gotcha. Yeah. Who should be on it? Best question. Who should be taking these medications?
So, in and of itself, I'm not going to say it's a super controversial question. Everybody should honestly be taking it because everybody can do their part to slow the spread of HIV. However, who they will give PrEP to is anybody who is possibly at a higher risk of exposure. So we're talking about people who are in serodiscordant relationships or a magnet relationship, which means essentially one of the partners is positive, one of the partners is negative. Or anybody who has multiple different sexual partners in which they may or may not be using condoms with. That's pretty much it. Also, primarily, people who use and share needles especially are also definitely told to get on PrEP just because.
You have myself right here.
Okay. Do you have a toothbrush?
Yes, I do. Where goes the question? It's just here. There we go.
So right now there are 2 different medications that are approved for use for pre-exposure prophylaxis. They were both originally different HIV medications that were found to, like I said, prevent the spread of it for those living without it. Those medications are Descovy and Truvada. Because of testing and because of research that needs to be done, currently, last time I checked, I could be completely wrong, obviously. As far as I know, I could be.
Data changes all the time.
Absolutely. Currently, Truvada is approved through testing for, let me see, MSM, both topping and bottoming. MSM is just the term that we use for men who have sex with men. It doesn't necessarily mean that they do or don't identify as gay. There's, like I said, men who have sex with men. Women who have receptive vaginal and anal sex, trans men who have receptive vaginal and anal sex, people who use and share needles, and I'm missing one. Also, I mean, heterosexual and gay, women as well. Descovy, last time I checked, is only approved so far for receptive MSM. So only pretty much gay bottoms, just to make it easy. It's not that it doesn't work for the other demographics, it's just because that's what testing has proven that it is who it works for. There are a lot of differences between the 2 medications through testing that we've found, again, in research. Like some of the differences is, and I'm talking like really minute stuff, like Truvada is known to cause slight bone thinning, whereas Descovy doesn't, and Truvada has been shown to mess with your testosterone levels just a little bit, whereas also Descovy does not. liver function, all this different stuff. And what was the other one I was going to bring up?
Stomach.
I mean, they're both pretty heavy. Truvada's a little bit of a heavier medication, so you're gonna, depending on the person entirely. Sometimes people experience a little bit more stomach issues and stomach pains in the first 2 weeks with Truvada, and I've noticed that a lot of the clients that I've spoken to said that they haven't experienced that with Descovy.
Mhm.
It's all just depends on the person.
Yeah.
Everybody experiences something different. I'm not speaking for the general everybody who takes it.
I'm a person who takes Truvada, and my husband has been on Descovy because we have multiple partners and such like that. For me, I do not experience any of these stomach issues, and my husband has been fine on Descovy, and he's currently switching back over to Truvada. I don't know why. Insurance wants him on that one instead, and I'm like, it's okay, we'll be fine as long as we keep taking it every day.
Yeah.
Because I rather make sure that none of my partners contract anything that we can't get fixed very quickly.
Yes, that is the most important part that girlfriend just brought up. The most important aspect of PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, is that you take it daily. Mm-hmm. The entire way that it works is the medication accumulates in your system. It has to. You have to take it every single day. I believe with Truvada, you need to let it accumulate in your system for 5 days before it is effective. Oh no, I know this. It is 5 days before it is effective for receptive vaginal sex, and 7 days before it is effective for receptive anal sex. And then I believe 7 days before it is effective for needle sharing. Whereas Descovy, I believe it is, again, 7 days for receptive anal sex. Again, I could be completely wrong. You can fact check me.
We won't tear you apart too hard.
No.
And that's fine. How often should someone be tested for STIs, HIV,
yes.
AIDS, and PrEP?
So,
All those good things we're just talking about.
I'm
How
going
often?
to bring each one of those up a little bit separately.
Yeah.
So, general STI and HIV rapid testing, what I tell my clients is you should be getting tested if you are single or not in a relationship and have multiple sexual partners, or in a relationship and have multiple sexual partners. You should be getting tested at least every 3 to 6 months. 3 months is the preferred because 3 months is how long it takes for your body to build up enough antibodies to show up on a rapid HIV test. For those of you that don't know, rapid HIV tests are in the upper 90th percentile in terms of accuracy because they look for HIV antibodies. And like I said, your body needs, it takes, depending on the person, up to 90 days for your body to build up enough antibodies to show up on a test. So that's why we suggest every 3 months. I keep doing that.
It's okay.
Because the earlier you catch it, the quicker you can get on medication, the quicker you can become undetectable, essentially. And then what was the other one you said? Get tested for
HIV and PrEP.
So when you're on PrEP, automatically they do blood work every 3 months.
Yep.
They do blood work not only to check to see if you have contracted HIV, but also to make sure that it isn't, doing something horrible to your liver and kidneys. However, you did bring up AIDS. Like I mentioned earlier, AIDS is the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome that is onset by and only from HIV. You can only have an AIDS diagnosis if you already have HIV. AIDS can only be tested for and diagnosed by a doctor, so you can't go to a testing clinic and be like, hey, I need an AIDS test, because first off, you need to have HIV first to be able to have an AIDS test, or AIDS in general. And then you also need extensive blood work to not only check for your CD4 count, which is your white blood cells, your viral load, and then also if you have any type of secondary opportunistic infections. All that fun stuff. Essentially, an AIDS is diagnosed when an individual's CD4 count falls below 200 copies per drop of blood, and they have any type of secondary opportunistic infection, as well as an HIV infection to begin with, obviously.
Awesome.
Sorry, lots of words.
No, it's okay. No, it's super important to get that information out there.
Yes.
So I'm asking you. It's just that short. Is HIV and AIDS still a quote unquote, and don't come at me, death sentence?
So absolutely not. So research has actually shown that people nowadays with modern technology and medical care are living just as long with it than they would have without it, essentially. As long as you keep up with your undetectable status and you know, keep up with your medication and medical care, it's completely, you know, like, well, you can live a completely normal life. All you have to do is just take your medication. A lot of people are on single pill regimes in terms of the medication that they take, but that's pretty much, from what I know, is achievable after you've been undetectable for 6 months or longer, and then they start switching out and, you know, leveling out your medication essentially. So.
Nice. Is there anything else that the place of work that you work for does for the community?
So
besides all the fun HIV and all that fun testing.
The place that I work originally was actually meant for medical respite and HIV case management. That's originally what it was for. House is in the name, so one of the biggest things is we provide housing for people who are, like I said, we're getting, what's the word, not expelled,
Displaced.
Discharged from any type of medical care center for one reason or another, and essentially taking them in and taking care of them and making sure that their medical needs are met. We also have an extensive behavioral health program, as well as intensive drug treatment, in-house drug treatment and stuff like that. I particularly work at the office that specifies in, how can I say this without giving out the name, client care. So my office takes care of, what's it called, case management for those that are living with HIV. We also do in-house testing, which is, again, where all the prevention staff pretty much is in my office. We also do counseling and treatment counseling for people who aren't living with HIV, but who are a minority. It's just because of the grants that we have. And then we also have a separate therapy program for people who are living with HIV. So we have a lot of different programs. In my office alone, I know we have I think 5 different Ryan White case managers, 3 medical case managers, and I think that's it. And then we also have ADAP and CIED people that come in and do a lot of Ryan White certifications and stuff for them, but that's kind of a third party thing. And then we also have at least 5 different actual counselors, and then 2 fully certified therapists in my office, as well as all of us that do the testing.
Yeah.
And in all reality, it's one of the best places I've ever worked. We have such an amazing team, and everybody there is absolutely beautiful, fantastic, and it's one of those jobs that you have to love to be able to do. I absolutely implore, if it interests you to any degree, absolutely go for it. Go for anything that has to do with HIV education. You know, go and get your 501 certification, and start testing. It's, for me, one of the most fulfilling things that I can do, because it's something that I've been doing since I was very young as far as the advocacy for it. I was 15, 16, bringing a giant bag of condoms to school and handing them out because the nurse told me it wasn't necessarily legal for her to have them there. So she was like, I can't have them. Yeah, right? So she's like, I can't really have condoms, but if you have access to a bunch of them, give them out. I was like, all right, that's a good idea. She's like, but I didn't tell you that. So, it started from a very young age for me. And I think even before I knew I was gay, even before I came out to myself, everybody has that kind of feeling. It was something that I knew deep down inside of me affected my community, and it was something that I needed to fight for and fight against, i.e. the stigma. So that's kind of where a lot of it started for me, and that's where the importance of it kind of really hit home, especially in terms of how I heard people talk about it, and how a lot of it was just very much misguided and just uneducated, a lot of the things that people say about it. Especially when, you have all these kids in elementary school, middle school and stuff, just saying stupid shit like, oh, I hope you get AIDS and die, and all this other stuff. And I think I remember specifically one scene from a movie that really struck with me, was from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, when they were in the one town, and they get back to their RV, and somebody spray painted across the RV, AIDS fuckers go home. And I was like, it's kind of one of those almost perfect representations of the exact stigma that a lot of gay people in general experience, but then on top of that, people who are HIV positive.
Yeah.
One of the biggest barriers, aside from client care, is essentially how the medical technician interacts with the client. To getting tested is stigma. People don't want to talk about it. People don't want to even get tested for it because there's this stigma of, well, why would you need to get tested for it in the first place if you weren't exposed to it? It only takes once. You don't need to be, super promiscuous, super slutty to be exposed to HIV. There's a lot of people. There's people out there that have HIV who have never even had sex. The entire reason why we have the Ryan White program is because of the actual person, Ryan White. He got it through a blood transfusion back in 1996, and he was young, and it's that stigma that's attached to an HIV infection to begin with that prevents a lot of people from even getting tested or getting into care, which is kind of backwards when you think about it, but it's because of the harmful stereotypes and stigma that's attached to it, like I mentioned
I can think
3 times before.
Yeah, I could think a lot just because the swingers community, like out here, like if you ask like for a status update, some people are like, oh, why would I need that? And I'm just like,
That's weird.
honey,
Like, no, I'm not gonna say it's weird. It's
uneducated
yes.
and it's risky. So I highly recommend that you are
playing
in the swingers community, go get tested and make sure you always wear protection.
Absolutely.
Because you never know, someone could be there and just screwing over their wife and
also
changing someone's life like that.
There's a lot of different points that I can bring up based on what you said. I think the first one I'm going to tackle is one of the main reasons why I personally don't say safe sex. I always say safer sex is because, first off, no matter what, let me wipe this off before I try. No matter what, there's always going to be a risk associated with sex. Period. End of story. There's always going to be a risk. It doesn't matter. Also, on top of that, there's not one way to have safer sex. It looks different for everybody. For some people, it is using condoms no matter what, unless you are in a long-term committed relationship with somebody. Or, for some people, it looks like, just having open and honest conversations with your partner beforehand and being trusting of, or only having sex with somebody that you fully trust. Not one is more valid than the other, and therefore, that's why I always say it's all up to you. It's all up to what is safe for you and what you are willing to risk. Mm-hmm. It's the same as RAC, risk-aware consensual kink. You are aware of the risk, and you are making the choices as an adult. That being said, condoms aren't necessarily always a viable option for people, not because they don't necessarily fit, because that's bullshit. If anybody ever tells you a condom doesn't fit,
put it over
they're
your foot.
lying to your fucking
Put
face.
it over your dang foot.
There is a reason I keep a 15-inch dildo on my desk, and it is exactly for that. So I can show people it's bullshit. But, for some people it's just not comfortable. For some people just can't stay hard when they're on a condom. For some people it's just not the best option. And that's completely fine as long as they are doing their part to protect themselves and their partner. There's other options. There's insertable condoms. There's, like I said, having open, honest communication. And I think for me that's the biggest thing that I tell people is just to talk to people and to have that open-minded communication and to be, honest and communicate and not only do your part to protect yourself and your partner, but to also eradicate the stigma that's attached to sex and having sex and getting tested and all this other stuff. Pretty much.
Yeah. You go get tested, talk to your partners, do the thing, all the lovely stuff. Okay, so switching gears, what is your leather family like? Because you have a very cool leather family.
We do, right? I'd say. It is very eclectic. Just first and foremost, we are all. So, our definition of a leather family, I would say, I could be obviously completely wrong. If any of you are watching, please correct me. I would say our definition of a leather family is slightly different from what people think, because everybody immediately thinks or goes to say, oh, Master Tony is the head of everybody in the leather family, and that's not really how we have it set up. We have it set up to where our leather family is multiple different households that are all the dominant of each household is kind of equal heading with everybody, and every decision is made with everybody else's input, essentially, whether or not they want to have their input or not. So it's very interesting the fact that it's definitely set up just like almost a biological family, except it gets a little muddy, to where you have, multiple different people that have multiple different families and households all coming together under one general household.
So it's like a big family with like cousins.
Yes, exactly.
Aunts, uncles, cousins.
Yes, brothers, cousins, littles, bigs. So, and then my immediate household, the House of Black, consists of my sir, Master Tony, Papa Tony for everybody that knows him. Shout out if you're watching.
Thanks.
So my daddy, Master Tony, his other boy Cliff, and then the three of us all live together, me, and then also boy Shane, who lives up in Ohio. And the most interesting part is, I would say to a certain degree, each one of us has a slightly different dynamic with, Papa than the other person. And it's interesting because obviously none of it's wrong. We all have our unique way of, interacting with him and interacting with each other. And I don't think I could ask for a better house, a household, or a better, family that can walk me into the leather lifestyle and walk me into the process of becoming a leader in this community. And that part has always been really important to me, in finding somebody who can share their firsthand experience with the leather community, because, I think Papa has been in the leather community for way longer than I've been alive, as well as Cliff and I think Shane's a little bit newer, but he's still obviously been in it way longer than me. So for me to have such a wealth of information and history literally at my fingertips is, like I said, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah.
Especially for me because, and I know this isn't super, super common for my generation, unfortunately, I love leather history, and I love kind of gay history in general, because for me, it's me, it's the people who came before me, it's all the people that fought for me to be here are the people who I look up to, essentially, and the only way that I can do them any justice is to kind of carry on in fighting the good fight, and the only way I can do that is by learning and by knowing my history before I can move forward. It's building that good foundation before you can build the house, essentially, and that's super, super, super important. And I would always say that to everybody else. Anybody else that wants to get into the community or is thinking about it or thinks they might be just a little bit kinky is, I don't want to say do your part, but just, learn about it and explore, because there's not one right or wrong way. Everybody's a little bit different, and everybody does something different in this community, and none of it is incorrect or wrong, unless you are hurting somebody.
Yeah, we can all agree about that.
Absolutely.
But we're about harming, not hurting.
Exactly. But I think, and that's kind of the part that sucks the most, and that is what pushes me a lot, is the really disparaging part is I feel like not a lot of really great people in this community have had no form of abusive relationship. If you ask anybody, everybody's gonna tell you a story they have with some type of abusive partner, and that sucks. And it sucks that that's such a kind of cornerstone of our community, is that so many of us were hurt, but also at the same time, in a weird way, it also helps build the community even more, because you have all these people who love everybody else to fall back on, and to show them what it's really like to be in this community, and show people what it's really like to be loved, And unfortunately, to a certain degree, it's almost par for the course when the community itself is built on misfits almost.
Yeah.
People who were shoved out of polite society and told, oh, you don't belong with us. Oh, you like to hurt each other. You can't possibly love each other if you're hurting people. And just, all that stuff built on stigma and miscommunication and stuff. So, for me at least, the parallels between fighting the HIV stigma and fighting the stigma of the kinky community is very, very prominent. I would definitely consider myself an advocate in many different ways. At least I'm trying to be.
I think you're doing a great job.
Educator, liaison, if you want to use a really fancy term.
A fancy person that knows their stuff. That's what I appreciate. Okay, you want me to look over your bag?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I noticed you missed the little tags already.
I wasn't sure.
Yes, they're the same.
Because I was wanting to do them all at the same time.
No, you do now. You did use a lot of soap, which is something I'm going to teach you how to correct. So you were very, very soap handed, which is fine.
Yes, I was.
There are plenty of. There's no wrong way to boot block unless you fuck up someone's leather, then there's a correction.
Admittedly, more heavy-handed than I normally am.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize.
I wasn't apologizing.
Oh, okay. That's fine then. You're fine. No, but I definitely noticed there's still some soap and such inside the seam here. So we're just going to take the toothbrush and just put direct water on it, and we're just going to scrub it out a bit. And this is why I'm here, because I'm here to help educate.
Indeed.
And I'm here to help make sure your stuff looks nice. Yeah, see how there's just soap piling out of that corner.
Crusty.
Yeah, we don't want crusties.
No, we don't want crusty.
I don't want you coming out here and be like, girlfriend fucked up my bag. And no, you did it yourself. There's proof. Nah, we got you. Yeah, so you did a whole glob of soap right here. Yeah, so definitely a little bit lighter on the soap. I mean, I've got rags. It happens. Don't worry, I've gotten crusties on my bags, so I do a lot of these. Straps, because I was like, oh boy.
Also, I know that it is a very hot topic right now, especially with the especially with the advent of so much leather alternatives. I am a huge proponent of just using regular leather. Like, I'm not like I need vegan leather, I need to save the animals, because in my opinion, vegan leather and like faux leather and all products that are meant to be leather and not are way more wasteful and harmful to the planet than just regular ass leather. Because if you think about it in the way of, depending on where you source the leather, of course, the cows are already being consumed. Might as well use as much of it as you can versus making something that looks like something that we can recycle. I feel really weird about saying recycle cows, but making something that looks like something else that could have been a lot more easily obtained, that's out of plastic. Like, if this gets thrown out tomorrow, how long is this going to be in a landfill before it breaks down? How many emissions are going to go into getting rid of this versus just chucking some leather out into a pit and letting it disintegrate?
I mean, even then, just sourcing like vegan leather and such is actually very, very toxic for the body. So when possible, and I'm not saying don't yuck anyone's yum, try and buy thrift store leather if you're really concerned about that, because that's recycling leather and giving it a new home. And plus, it's broken in already, so it should be really, really soft and super comfy, especially if you find it like the best pair of boots. And if you don't like the soles of them or they're getting old and fall apart, take it to a cobbler. Yeah. They're super affordable, and be like, oh yeah, sure, I could totally resole that for you. I am not a cobbler, no boot black. Okay, not all boot blacks are cobblers.
Oh yeah, no.
That's a whole nother topic.
Also, not all boot blacks are miracle workers. Watch yourselves.
Anything can be fixed. I'm saying I don't have a lot of time for it.
That is also true.
Yeah. No, you did good though. You did good. And again, we're talking and we're doing stuff carefully, so.
My hands just go on autopilot sometimes.
It's okay. My hands are on autopilot. It's all good. Okay. So I'm gonna do the tags for you.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're welcome. Before we ask that question, what is your definition of leather?
The first thing that comes to mind is just community. It's, like I mentioned, we are a community that is a giant patchwork quilt of different people that come from different lifestyles with the one thing in common of we're here to support each other and we're here to, support each other and, love each other. I think is kind of the biggest thing for me and that's the most important part, and a large part that a big important part of that is, like I said, leather history and knowing where we're coming from so we can know where we're going. A very important part of the leather community, I would say, is educating and is, having that backbone. And because so much of our history is oral, being able to share that is really, really important. And that's why, furthermore, bootblacks in this community are very important because that's where a lot of our history is not only shared, but that's what keeps our community pretty. Bootblacks are who, shape our community, who maintain the look of our community, and who, care for the community through caring for our goods, essentially. And I'm a huge believer of energy, and a large part of my spirituality is linked to the energy that everybody puts out. And so when you have a crafted good, whoever made that put their energy into it. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same goes for whoever cares for things. So anybody that's bootblacking is putting their love and their energy into your leather, and therefore that gets carried around. That gets carried around to different conventions, different events, and different mixers, and different, scenes, and it just all gets recycled, and that's one of the most important parts is, like I said, caring for each other, and it starts with caring for our leather, I would say.
Okay. I'm going to teach you how to do these nylon straps.
Oh,
these nylon straps are quite like how I do my shoelaces. So we're going to pull them all the way up, so they're all the way nice. And I'm going to I always have a bottle of 1 to 10 isotope alcohol.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and just take them and soak this rag right here.
Yes.
And spray it everywhere. And I'm going to pull the straps through to help clean them and get some stuff off. Now this shouldn't be too bad because you've had it for like a day.
Yeah.
But if this was a pair of shoelaces that has been hanging around for 5 years and hasn't had any love and care, and you don't have the replacement soles, this is a great way on how to
Well,
get
like I
them
mentioned
clean.
earlier, this sits right under the armpit.
Yeah, it's gonna get gross and sweaty.
Sick nasty.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, but you see how there's a color shift now, and this is darker
absolutely.
from the lighter. So I'll let you do the other side.
Okay, perfecto.
So it's just a 1 to 10 isotope alcohol solution. So 1 part alcohol, 10 parts water. If you got filtered water, cool. If you don't, sink water works great. You don't have to be fancy with this. Just take care of it. That's all I'm gonna ask.
Please just take care of yourself.
Just love yourself. Love your leather a little much.
Absolutely.
All right. Tell us your first experience and what made it bring you into lifestyle.
So, I do not endorse the experience that I had. I found puppy play through Tumblr when I was very young, younger than I should have been. However, I did not actually engage in any activities as far as getting with people and in puppy play until I was actually 18. But it was very much seeing it and seeing all the cute guys and being like, oh, I like this. And then kind of looking into it more, I'm like, am I a pup? Is this what I'm into? Do I like playing around? Yeah, do I like playing around and being called cute and a good boy? And I ended up bought my first hood from, I'm not going to say because I don't want to get them in trouble or anything, when I was 17. It is a very popular brand of hoods that are neoprene. And I kind of just fell in love. And I ended up, when I turned 18, to me at the time, and this is again through those 18-year-old rose-colored glasses, found this guy on, Growler who just moved down, and, his name literally on Growler was Pup Handler. and it wasn't the best experience, but it taught me a lot, and that was really important for me to learn. Who is and who isn't, actual handlers, and who isn't actually meant to be dominance. And I think especially the difference between actual dominance who want to live the lifestyle versus people who just think it's hot, who think they're dominance, and that's kind of almost worse because it's not intended to be harmful.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they're fine, but in reality, they're hurting the people who are trying to just submit to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of my first foray into it, and then I started, aside from, having that underwear fetish for God knows how fucking long. And so kind of that was my first foray into, getting into it, and then after I left that relationship and got in with my current family, I started actually meeting people, and I was like, oh, this is definitely my community, because it's, again, so much of it is just pure love, and friendship, and, everything that you would expect from, a My Little Pony episode.
Oh boy.
Friendship
All the ponies.
is magic.
It is magic. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and tackle the strings because this is a new bag. We see some little string
Yes,
toys.
literally every single one had this one pop loose.
Rude.
Guys.
Loungefly, your quality is supposed to be way better than this. So we pay $75 for these bags, for Christ's sakes.
I had
You had a helping hand?
I had a discount.
Oh, nice. Good.
Annual pass holder.
Oh. Come back to me when you have a cast member discount.
Well, I've been there, done that too.
Gotcha. So there's two ways how they can tackle this. These small ones here are pretty burny, so we can burn them off if you like. What you can also do, because this boy's a little long, you just take a pair of scissors and just clip it as needed, because it is colored leather. You want to make sure that the singe is going to be very, very light. So
Yes.
super important, because it's colored, because once you singe it, it's kind of a pain in the ass to fix it. And I'm not about to fix your things. So, I'm going to go ahead and take a small pair of scissors that I should have in my thing, and if not, I'm going to very, very daintily take a knife. Where are you? Oh yes, tiny itty bitty baby scissors. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one and just leave it a little bit shorter, and that way we can burn off the singe. Now, I've got two lighters here. I've got a cigar lighter and a regular one. The cigar one, it holds a flame constantly. It's better for control. This one is like...
It's like a torch.
Yes.
Instead of just a
and this one
candle flame.
is good in a quick pinch. So I'm going to go ahead and just gently burn this first one for you.
But let's be real.
There.
If you're at an event, people are more likely to have a cigar torch.
Yeah, the regular event, I have these just in my kit because I somehow acquired them. So I'm going to let you go around and just gently burn them. So it's going to be a quick burn. And that way no one will ever know that you like. Yep.
Perfect. Look at that. Oh my
Very
gosh.
quick. Alright. Can leather and kink be political?
Absolutely. I think it's really hard not to be because so much of our lifestyle in our community is politicized. And especially when a large part of us are, to a certain degree, political outcasts for one reason or another. And a large part of our community definitely is leaning a certain way in terms of politics. I'm the type of person that says I don't like talking about politics, but I will abso-fucking-lutely trash politicians outright and not give a fuck who's listening. And just say stuff. But I think it kind of, like I said, it has to be, because from the beginning, it was the kinky leather people that were making the waves. It was the outcasts. It was the brown people, the leather folk, the drag queens. We were the ones that were making the big waves. We were the ones that were fighting for the rights of the queer community from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So to all of a sudden kind of give up on that now would be, it's not a disservice, but it's like, well, why are we going to stop now, And I think our voices are stronger than we think. We are a very strong community in terms of who we are, what we represent, and what we will fight for. So if we all kind of fight for the right and same thing, we can be some powerful motherfuckers. That, and, there's something to be said about a bunch of people that can take a bunch of whips and floggers and shit.
Yeah. Can both give and receive.
Absolutely.
I think that's super important.
Oh, you see, even you missed some soap.
Even I do. It happens. Welcome. I am not infallible. I am not international or world. Don't come at me, AJ Porter. I swear.
Nobody is infallible.
No one is. So.
Yeah, AJ, come get your daughter.
Go get your daughter. She's acting all a fool. No, I love you, AJ. You're great.
We all love AJ.
AJ's super great. I need to get AJ on the show.
Yes.
I know. Been hard. Been difficult.
It's the two AJs.
It's the Rona, honestly, because I, for me personally, I try and space these out so I have time
Yeah, to like quarantine.
to quarantine at least for a week in between shows.
Gotta be responsible.
I do have to be responsible because that's what is called for.
Scissors?
Scissors, yes.
Oh my god, isn't that tiny?
They're little sewing scissors, so you can pick them up in any little sewing kit.
I have those tiny little, they're like embroidery scissors.
Mhm.
Oh, I love those.
Oh yeah, those things are cute. My mom has a set.
They're so sharp.
Mhm. I think my mom's is like in the shape of a bird.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
I should really get one. What does leather leadership mean to you? What do you look for in a leather leader? Stuff.
I would say somebody who does their part to uplift the community is definitely, because again, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be a community if we didn't support each other and we didn't, all fight for one another's rights. And you can't necessarily be a leather leader while tearing people down, because that's not how that works, because you're directly going against what you're fighting for. So I would definitely say people who fight for what's right, fight for acceptance, and uplift people and welcome people into the community with open arms. And I think that's the biggest thing that will always be my biggest pet peeve in any community, gay, leather, otherwise, or the elders of the community who look down upon the new people for not knowing anything, because we're all new at some point. We're all fresh and new to something. We all know nothing until we know something. So I think it's opening up and sharing what you know. That's really, really important. And that's what I would look for in a leather leader. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Alright, we think we got all the strings burned off.
Give me 1 second. Let me do one more.
One more check.
Gotta do a little check.
All the chicks.
How easy it can start with.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think we're Gucci.
Okay, cool. Alright, so we're gonna use Fidbird's mink oil paste, and again, this expires every 6 months. The second you open it, write down the date. Mine expires the end of March, so I must get a new one, which is fine by me. But this is kind of your only options for your vinyls and your fake leathers. So it's clear, so you don't have to worry about it. It goes on any colored leather, which is really great. Personally for me, I like to take a small bit and warm it up in my hands, and then rub it onto the leather. And just work it in like I do with any other good conditioner.
So what is your favorite part about boot blacking? Like what part do you get to and you're like, oh, this is my favorite part of this?
My favorite part's actually hearing stories.
Okay. I was gonna say.
I thought this would be a really smart way to record stories,
Oh, yeah.
especially for oral tell. I'm like, we're very oral people, but no one's writing this down, and I don't have time to write it down, so at least I'm recording it and posting it to where it's accessible to everybody.
We are indeed very oral people.
Yeah. My boyfriend can tell you that for sure.
I mean, I was gonna say my favorite aspect is the conditioning, because it's the hottest.
Oh, yeah. That too.
Like, I don't know, there's just something so hot about, like, being between somebody's legs and, like, rubbing up on their, like, boots and stuff. And you, like, I get really into it. I think it's fun and it's hot as shit. And just...
I know. For me personally, I just like the technical fixing of exercise.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm definitely way more of a technical boot black than I am a sensual boot black. For me personally, like, I don't care if there's a show. I care if your stuff is walking out of here better than it looked for me.
I'm a healthy both, I would say. Like, I definitely enjoy both aspects.
Nice. Again, there's different styles of boot black.
It also
don't yuck anyone else's yum.
Absolutely. It also very much depends on who's in my chair.
That's true too. Alright, how do you find time for community?
I mean, lately it's been a little difficult, but lately it's looked more like, online group chats, try just making the effort to keep in touch with friends and, family members and community members, sharing dog pictures.
I
Absolutely.
confirm or deny this.
Like I said, right now it definitely just looks like doing little things like that to just remind your community that you're there for them and vice versa. And then, in normal times when we're not in a global pepperoni pizza, I would say it looks like, doing the same thing, but then also going out to events and supporting people. Supporting the events that your friends are putting on because you would expect the same of them. So, it would definitely look a lot like, supporting your friends, being with people, and supporting please support your local events. Support every event you can, because without your support, we can't have them. We can't fund them, and that's, to a certain degree, unfortunately, the events are the backbone of our community. The events are what bring us together, especially in a state like Florida that's so fucking big. It's not like one of those tiny square states that are in the center of the country.
You say this like you've been to one of those.
I have not. I left Florida once, and it was to go to New York, and I fucking hated it. But we're a big state, so there's a lot of times where I don't see people unless we're at events. This is the first time I've seen you since FLF. Leather Mask Ball?
Leather Mask Ball. So like over a year ago.
Yeah. So, like going to those events are what's going to literally, like I said, be the backbone of this community, and that's when you're going to meet new people, that's when you're going to make new connections, that's when you're going to meet new partners, new lovers, new people that are going to go on this journey with you. So that I would say is one of the biggest important parts. Did I go back already? Yes, I can. So for me, that's what I would say is kind of the most important part and the biggest part about the community, and is the events and getting together and staying in touch with each other. Because I think to a certain degree, people forget this is definitely a social community. We thrive off of talking to each other, even though a large portion of us probably are introverts. So that's definitely what the biggest backbone is communication.
Nice. What is your favorite toy in your toy bag?
I mean, my personal toy bag, not that big. That's a great question.
Is there a house toy bag?
Well, I mean, we have a dungeon.
That's true. You do have a personal dungeon.
It's probably a tie between, I call them they're my boyfriends. I have a small Pierce from Brad Dragon in copper, and then I have my magic wand, obviously. So I'm in a polyamorous relationship with them, and they're my, they're my boyfriends.
I love it.
So I definitely would say it's a tie between those two.
Nice. Alright. Is BDSM and kink sexual?
Not inherently, no. It can be.
Can.
And for a lot of people, and for all intents and purposes, there is a lot of crossover, but it's not inherently sexual.
Gotcha.
Like I said, I would say majority of the actual scenes that I've had, especially with my partner Papa, haven't really been sexual. It's the way Master Tony likes to play, Papa likes to play, is very spiritual, where it's not so much this connection, it's like this connection, to where, you kind of, after you warm up, everybody gets into a space where your energies are flowing together in a way that's not strictly physical, mental, or aural. It's all, you kind of both get into this space, and it's, in and of itself, feels like that deep connection that sex can bring, so it's not always necessary. For me personally, it's kind of like whipped cream. It's great when it's there, but it's not always necessary, or it's even great on its own. So I'm not gonna miss it if it's not on something, but it's always fun if it is. But like I said, for me, I love, when I'm really getting beat, and this goes for most types of pain like that, I tend to go into a separate state. It almost feels like
Headspace. Yeah.
yes, to where I feel like I'm kind of slightly floating above my body, and I envision it always as an ocean, to where it comes in, washes out, comes in, washes out. So for me, I just enjoy the aspect of feeling the pain and letting it go, and feeling that kind of high from it. So yeah, no, sex isn't necessarily linked, although it can be for people. It's all personal.
All personal. Gotcha. I'm gonna double check your bag.
I do. I probably did miss some spots. I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay. That's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this. So this is a new bag, so there's no scratches or things like that we have to repair, which is great. If you do get that, Fitbirds is the same company. They make great leather paint, and you can mix them and do like little test patches, like especially over here, to make sure everything matches and color dyes.
Is it like regular paint, or it always dries darker?
No, it dries the color. But you can mix them together to get like the actual factual blues and the actual factuals. Yeah, I have just the standard color, and it has got me by for years. Nice. So it's super nice. So
good to know.
It is good to know. I'm also looking behind his ears.
I thought I got behind his ears.
You did. You missed this small part.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking and flipping it over, like you can see like where the shine is and where
because there's
it's
a difference in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Double check the tags. Undo the thing, and then we're gonna do a zipper. I'm doing this. What changes have you seen in the leather community, and what changes would you like to see?
I mean, look, I'm not that old. I haven't been around that long, so I haven't seen any like really big long-term changes. What I would like to see is, I feel like we're working towards it, but it still is a work in progress. Is more acceptance, just in general. You know, more acceptance of queer bodies, more acceptance of, you know, women, more acceptance of trans people, more acceptance of people of color. Less infighting and less, what's the word? Like angst, I guess. You know, and it exists in the ways that you don't necessarily expect it to. You know, it exists in, like, a common thing I see a lot is people would complain about how we're only dividing the community more, because you have groups of people who are people of color who want to make their own spaces, because for all intents and purposes they've been pushed out of the common spaces, and you have people that look at it and say, well, they're just splitting up the community even more, wherein, you know, they're just doing what they need and want to do to feel comfortable within this community, because they've already been pushed out by the general community. So just more acceptance and more, you know, love that needs to go around, and more, you know, appreciation of each other, I think, is something that needs to be changed, and less old school thought processes, which, I mean, is obviously throughout, it's going to be pushed out regardless, because you have people that are a lot younger that are starting to step into some of those roles as people cycle out, you know, and I think everybody's input is valuable to a certain degree, but then at some point we need to kind of learn when sometimes we need to stop listening to some of these people. And I'm not talking about anybody in specific, just in general, you know, sometimes you have people that, and this is everybody, that get caught up in the way that they were brought up, and so their line of thinking is very antiquated, and sometimes to a certain degree they can't really change that after a certain point. So I think the biggest thing is letting some of the younger people start taking the reins. And by younger, I don't necessarily mean like my age. I mean like, you know, AJ's age, maybe a little bit older.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, look, we're only, 8 years apart? Nothing crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, so we're gonna oil up the zippers here, so you don't have it like one in time. This is gonna get stuck. And take forever. So I like to use Oganos, or hard beeswax, and you can just run it right on the thing. So
cool.
it's very
it'll work its way into it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know where my other one has gone off to, so I'm just just gonna run it right on the zipper.
Nice.
And I'm just gonna take the zipper and run it back a couple times.
Nice.
See, this one's a little stiff down
It
here
is stiff.
because it's new, and it's probably never been worked this much. Someone
I barely opened it.
I know. I found change. Why do you think some leather folk have massive issues with non-binary friends?
I mean, to a certain degree, to the same reason that the general public has to, you know, the idea of people who are non-binary, is because we are brought up being taught that there is a binary man and woman. But what we didn't consider is that it's all fucking bullshit. There is no... The binary in and of itself is completely made up in our heads. And it's something that we made up to feel more comfortable because humans by nature like to simplify things. They feel comfortable when things are simplified and known and finite. So the idea that something exists outside of that feeble, you know, this is the way it is and always has been and always will be, is threatening. And so to a certain degree they feel threatened by the idea of something that comes along and, what's the word? Not discredits, but kind of tears away everything that they were brought up to believe. So once you get past that and once you understand, like, hey, it's all a performance. Like, they're literally, if you look into the science behind it, not only is gender not a binary, but neither is sex. Not only is the sign sex, you know, so everything can exist on not just a spectrum, but like a dodecahedron of different options. So once you kind of relinquish the control of, you know, having to force yourself to think that everything is finite, you kind of let go of that and you get less anxious about it. So I think in all reality it boils down to comfort. And, you know, people feeling I'm not talking about doing that. And people feeling uncomfortable about things changing. Mm-hmm. And I think change in general is what's threatening a lot of people. To whereas if you just kind of embrace it, embrace the chaos, you're fine. And I think to a certain degree, unless you're explicitly brought up with it, a lot of people, even people who identify as, who are non-binary now, might have had issues with it when they first learned about it. Because again, even though we all use the singular they, and we always have, and we always will, we're not used to using it to refer to somebody whose gender is already known. Mm-hmm. So it's confusing, and it's disrupting what they already know and believe in. So it's the threat of the unknown. It's the threat of the infinite. It's the threat of, you know, the vastness of who we are as people. So I think that's kind of what stands in the way of a lot of leather folk. Accepting not only the idea of non-binary genders and identities, but accepting the idea of gender nonconformity to begin with, and going against that, because for the same reasons it's threatening. You know, you see a man in high heels and you don't think, oh, that's really hot, he's living his best life. You see that and think, that's uncomfortable because I'm not used to it. Mm-hmm. You know, and that is a whole other thing that I have a lot of theories about. Well, yes, a lot of the issues that we have, not only as a society but as a leather community, are based in misogyny. Mm-hmm. You know, half of the issues that we talk about now wouldn't fucking exist if misogyny didn't exist, if the idea of it didn't exist. It's the basic fear of femininity and the fear of how we treat feminine traits and feminine people that is at the backbone of so much. It's at the backbone of transphobia. It's that at the backbone of homophobia. It's all the basic fear of femininity and, again, how we treat feminine people. So once we kind of let that go and stop being so fucking trashy to anything feminine, then we can definitely start moving forward a little bit more. Yeah. Obviously, I have very strong feelings about this.
I'll take them because it's great. How do we make a community safe space for everyone?
Acceptance. Again, you know, and not only acceptance, but feeling comfortable enough to ask questions in a respectable way and not being afraid of educating. You know, if there was less you know, I hate cancel culture to begin with. There's a very, I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. There are rare instances where it is actually warranted, yes. Because all that you do by canceling somebody is what changed, other than them not having a platform anymore. The only thing that's changed is them not having a platform. They didn't learn anything. They didn't get educated on anything. And it's one thing if you try and reach out and say, hey, this is why we don't do this in the most respectable way you can, and they deny that or they immediately don't want to talk about it. But to completely write them off because they might just not know better nobody wins. And I think a really big thing that people don't necessarily think of is there's a big difference between ignorance and bigotry. Just because somebody's ignorant doesn't mean they are ill-willed or that they want to hurt people. It just means that they just don't know better. And it's, to a certain degree, yes, it can be exhausting, and yes, it's not always your job, but, to a certain degree, the people who take on the role of the advocates, need to be able to educate people, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to prevent a lot of this, a lot of, people feeling left out and mistreated and cast away from the community. This is not the community to, cast people away from. We've already been casted out by society to a certain degree. We've already been cast out by our families, a large portion of us. So we don't need to be doing that to each other. This community needs to stand by each other and grow together, and you can't do that by just canceling people because they might not know better. Again, everybody knows nothing until they know something. So, and I think there's a way to take accountability from the things you might have said and done at the same time as learning about them. And it's going to be uncomfortable learning that maybe what you said a few years ago wasn't fucking cool, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. And that's the biggest thing I've had to learn, is it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel really icky because you learned something that you did or said wasn't cool, and instead of making excuses for it, sitting with it and thinking about why it's not okay and justifying it, or not justifying it, and rectifying it, and saying, yes, I thought this, I don't think it anymore, yes, I said this, it wasn't okay, and this is why it's not okay, and all that stuff. So,
and maybe learning from your mistakes.
Absolutely, and then going on to maybe tell other people when they're making those mistakes, again, in a respectable manner.
Awesome. Cool. This bag looks great. You did amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you. You're so good. Is there any other organizations you support in the community? Any other community organization you wish to plug?
I'm trying to think. So, what got me my start is this community in Lake Worth, Florida. It is in West Palm Beach County. It's called Compass GLCC, which is the Gay and Lesbian Community Center. It is Palm Beach County's only LGBT community center. They do absolutely amazing works. I would not be here